All right, good evening. Welcome to Get Real with Rick Dancer. I am Rick Dancer, and it's good to have you with us. I told somebody about this initiative petition number 13. People have been talking about it all over the place. I mentioned what it was and what it actually does, and people were saying to me, no way, that's not going to happen, until I reminded them that we live in the state of Oregon. And anything can happen in Oregon. And I want you guys to understand better what this is all about, because in my opinion, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And it's super scary if you're a hunter, if you're anyone who eats meat, if you're anyone who raises beef, if you're anyone who raises backyard animals for food or other things. And so we're going to talk to an expert about this. I want to thank our sponsor, Parker Heights Realty. Amanda's out in Junction City. This is very much going to affect her neighbors and the people that she represents and working with. It's going to affect each and every one of you who lives in Oregon. And the problem is that on the ballot measure, it says something about animal cruelty. The petition to end animal cruelty. So if you're one of those people that stands at the grocery store and the guy walks up to you and he says, hey, would you sign this petition? You're probably going to sign it because it sounds like something, hey, yeah, I'm against animal cruelty, but you aren't reading the fine print. So here to talk to us a little bit about the fine print. And let me just say, I'm going to bring him up real fast. Okay, turn your computer thing down. You guys, this is Tom Sharp with the Oregon Cattlemen's Association live in Harney County in Burns, Oregon. And we may lose him visually because you're on Verizon. You guys don't have great internet out there.
Obviously not, no.
So, Tom, tell me your concern. I'm letting your voice come through the phone to the audience here. So talk to me about what this Petition 13, what it would do.
Well, thank you, Rick. It's good to be on, and hello to all the viewers and listeners. And I hope you'll be able to view and listen to this afternoon without too many interruptions. What IP 13 is a bad idea. IP 13 would be through the initiative petition process of establishing law in Oregon. It would have the impact of criminalizing good animal husbandry. It would turn farmers and teachers into felons. As you have already said, it would make illegal animal livestock, agriculture within the state. Any meat products that we would consume here in the state of Oregon would have to come from out-of-state sources. It would cease our hunting and fishing activities for sportsmen. Animal breeding of both pets and livestock would be outlawed. Horse trainers, pet groomers, all such activities are under the title of cruelty to animals under this petition here. So it's a bad idea. It's not necessary. Oregon already has existing laws on the books under Chapter 167 of Oregon Revised Statutes that makes animal cruelty illegal. But IP 13 would remove those practices that are currently exempted in Oregon that are reasonable practices so that we can have food, so we can have 4-H, FFA programs, we can have our pets, we can breed livestock, so on and so forth. So I guess in a 1-minute nutshell, that's what it would do. It's a bad idea. I would encourage all citizens of Oregon not to sign the petition that the petition carriers are asking us to sign here over the course of the next year.
So Ryan on here says only in Oregon. And Ryan, I want to tell you, no, it's not. It's actually Oregon and Colorado. This same measure is right there. Tom, we lost you visually, but I can probably still hear you. Can you hear me?
fine. I'm reconnecting my video.
Okay. So I was reading through this, this legislation, and what is it that they're trying to do? I for the life of me, what would that do to your industry in terms of cattle? It's got to be devastating to Oregon. I was out in my wife and I were over in the Pendleton area, and we were riding bikes in the back roads, and oh my God, the number of cattle ranchers out there was enormous. I don't think people understand how big cattle ranching is in the state of Oregon.
Well, sure. Well, cattle, beef cattle, and calves are in Oregon agriculture one of the leading agricultural economic sectors in the state. Depending upon our cattle prices, some years just the beef cattle and calves themselves can return $1 billion to the Oregon economy. But more so, it's the primary economic activity here in much of eastern Oregon. So when you visit Pendleton, or if you were to come to visit me in Burns, Oregon, or go down to Lakeview, Ontario, Prineville, all such areas, Hefner, Ione, many areas that your viewers and listeners are familiar with. That's our economic base, and ranching and livestock production is the major economy here. So what the initiative Petition 13 would do is within that economic sector, it would kill animal livestock, not just beef and cattle, but sheep and goats and hogs, poultry products, fish products. I don't think any Oregonian who is educated on the effects of this initiative would want to see that happen, but that would be the effect of the initiative should it pass.
Now, this would also limit breeding, right?
Yeah, it limits breeding. A lot of our breeding is sometimes conducted, at least in the beef industry, more and more through artificial insemination, so that we can get the right genetic characteristics, the size of calves that make calving ease possible. This is good animal husbandry practice that we're doing here, but it would outlaw those types of breeding practices. So, the petitioners that are proposing IP13, they say, hey, we're not adverse to people eating food or animals being used as a food product, as long as the animal can live a full and natural lifespan before it would be consumed.
So you're supposed to wait. So you're going to wait and kill an old dead cow dies, and then that's what you're going to have for your beef product. I mean, do people understand? They don't understand the industry, that you can't have an old. I mean, that's like you want to have a tough steak. I'll tell you where a tough steak comes from: an old cow that dies in a pasture, and you can run out and that's not even possible. You can't do. So, Tom, let me ask you this: does this affect salmon? I mean, this is salmon, commercial salmon fishing. This is trout fishing. This is people fishing on the rivers. I mean, is it everybody?
Oh yeah. If you're a fisherman, it would affect you, because to catch a fish is cruel. I mean, you would be ending the life of that fish unless you were to catch and release. So, it has many negative impacts.
Who's behind it? People are asking, who's the group that's behind this?
Well, we have animal rights activists in this country. We have people who, are, their eating practices. They may be vegan. They may not be into meat products of all types, whether it be beef or poultry or fish or what have you. And they have a care and concern for, I guess, the life span of these species of animals, whether they be aquatic or mammal based. But mankind, the human race, was not founded upon those practices and principles, and today, we still have not changed from our preferences of what we eat.
Well, and so in terms of, I have friends that are plant-based eaters and that kind of thing, and I give it to them. That's great. That's their choice. But it's like taking away a choice that I think it's kind of scary about it. Can you mute your mic again? Okay. What's scary about that, Tom, to me, is that I think people will think this is so foolish that they won't do anything about it. They'll think, oh, it's not going to happen. Is that what your guys' fear is? Because you're coming at this really hard, and I think that's a good thing. But you guys are really coming after this thing. And is it because you're afraid Oregonians are going to sit back and on their hands, accidentally sign it because it sounds good? Because I don't want you beating my dog. I mean, that's animal cruelty. I don't want you beating my dog. And this thing is going to, and my friend Garrett's on here. He owns Northwest Burgers across the street. Every day they grind their beef fresh. What's he going to be serving in his burgers? Some old cow? I mean.
Yeah, I suppose so. I have cattle that have lived to a ripe age of 17 years age. And but I don't think that's what we meant when we call it aged beef. Typically, beef cattle are harvested somewhere between the age of 14 months to 22 months of age. So, IP13 clearly removes an option for people dietary preferences. And as you said, I have no problem with people who choose to be plant-based in their diet or vegan or whatever their preferences might be. But those people, let's take the vegan, for example. The vegan population here in the total United States is about 3% of the total U.S. population claim to be vegans. Well, if you have a segment that wants to remove the choice of what 97% of the other population in this country has, I think that's a bad rap.
Yeah.
And I think that is a major effect of the initiative, Petition 13, that has to be understood by our voting public. We can't have a small percentage of animal right activists or whatever their belief system might be that represents such a small minority to control the vast majority of society.
So in terms of, what always happens with this is it sounds like one thing, but Oregonians, what would happen to the price of beef? Would you even have a beef industry if this happened? I don't think people understand the cost that would go along with this in terms of, because that's pork, that's chicken, it's turkey, it's beef, it's all of that. And I don't think people understand they're going to pay for that. We do things in Oregon sometimes that drives me crazy. That sounds so good. And we don't think through what the end result might be and then we look back and go, what the hell happened there?
Well, so to answer your question, what would happen to the price of beef and so forth like that, or would we even have a meat industry? That's an excellent question, because if the laws become such that an animal cannot be harvested for its meat unless it has lived a full and natural lifespan, there's no predictability of when that animal might die that I could then go out into my pasture where that animal had lived to the age of whatever it lived to. As I said earlier, I had some cows that lived to be 17 years of age. And if my task as a rancher then becomes, looking for a natural death in the pasture and then going out to harvest that beef, I don't think the public would want to be consumers of that type of a product, and certainly there would be no certainty of any economic viability in that practice as a beef rancher that would pencil out to make any sense at all. I think what we would see is that any meat products consumed in the state of Oregon would have to come from some other state that has not passed such laws like IP 13 proposes. And so Oregon-based food production, at least in the meat product sectors, would no longer be viable.
So, Jackie, yes, this does affect equestrian breeding, because she asked that question while you were talking. The other thing that I thought, here's an interesting thought, is if this passes, if this really were to become an initiative petition, which it has not yet, if it did and we voted on it, this would be 2 years away, right? In 22, is that right? Is that next year? November ballot?
That's correct. It's proposed to be on the ballot in November of 2022. The petition itself needs to collect 112,000 ballot signatures between now and July 8th of 2022. And then the Secretary of State will have to certify the petition on the November ballot.
Can you hit your mic off again? Thanks, buddy. We're learning how to do this, aren't we, Tom? We're getting pretty good at this.
We're getting fast, but it takes a lot of mouse clicking.
Well, buddy, you're doing a really good job because you're keeping your train of thought, and you guys, we're in Burns, Oregon this is Tom from the Oregon Cattlemen's Association, and Tom Sharps, and his internet is really bad, so we're going through Verizon using a phone. But this is what we can do now. But that's another cry for we need better internet in the rural Oregon. Here's another thought, Tom. If this happened, I bet the greater Idaho movement would boom, and you guys, all of a sudden, all of Eastern Oregon financially would have to become part of Idaho. The Willamette Valley would have to become its little thing, its little state, and you guys could join Idaho and still produce your beef. It's insanity.
Yeah. No, it is, and I don't even want to go there, but that is a real consideration that's been proposed, is that several of the Eastern Oregon counties join with Idaho, and perhaps even Northern California counties as well. But that's a pretty extreme measure in itself.
So your biggest fear, because you guys are really pushing this hard, is that you would like to get it so Oregonians are informed, they know what this is and what it's not, and so that this does not make it to the ballot. Because I think people, I want to keep hammering this, is people in Oregon think this just couldn't happen. It sounds too crazy. Guys, what have we gone through the last year and a half? Nothing is too crazy. And I think if this happens, it's going to devastate the economy in Oregon. It's going to, what about small farmers? People that just raise a couple of pigs for themselves to raise them. They can't do that anymore. It's going to impact everybody.
It's not, we talked a lot about, cattle. We've talked about sheep and lamb and pork and poultry and fish. The Initiative Petition 13 doesn't limit itself to changing the law that allows for the harvest of those types of edible meats. It would also prohibit the ability to kill, rats in the house, rodent control, predators.
No,
so it goes way beyond, just the food table. It goes into other practices that the ordinary person, when you have a mouse in your house, I think your thought is, well, I'm going to trap it. Well, you might become the next criminal if you do.
So I've got gophers in my backyard, and I've got a 9mm, and my new practice target is going to be shooting those things. I guess I better kill them before anything happens here, huh?
Yeah, but I think they'll come back on you, Rick. So
yeah, they're nasty little creatures. So Tom, so how can people find out more about this? And like, do you guys have a website? Is there places people can go? How can they get involved? Because I think it's going to take more than just a couple of times talking about this.
Yeah, 12 of the Oregon agricultural organizations association, and I'm talking about Oregon Farm Bureau, Oregon Cattlemen's Association, Oregon Sheep Growers, Food Northwest, the Northwest Chicken Council, the Horse Council, the Seafood Processors Association, the Dairy Farmers Association, Oregonians for Food and Shelter. Those types of groups, they've all come together as a coalition in opposition to this. And there is a website that has been put up, and I'm going to give you that website
guys,
URL, and it's very simply OregoniansForAnimalCare.org.
can somebody
OregoniansForAnimalCare.org. That's the website.
Okay,
if
can somebody, Tom, real quick?
Enter your contact information to be put on a list for information that will be disseminated to Oregonians who want to make sure that IP13 doesn't happen.
All right, so can somebody out there, when Tom's going to say it one more time, somebody did, OregonsForAnimalCare.org. Rachel, thank you so much. So Rachel put it on there, you guys. And so there's the website you go to. And if you are, well, here's the thing I didn't think about. So milking, your milk products are going to go up. And and here's what I could see happening. This is one of the things we never think about, I think, is what's to determine whose definition of cruelty. So is squeezing a cow's udder, is that cruel to squeeze a cow's udder? I mean, what if in the future it becomes, wait a minute, I think that hurts that poor cow and we need to stop that. That's a cruel, so now you're opening up a whole can of worms where people can go in, and I milk goats for 2 years. I raised goats and I milked them, and it doesn't hurt them. But my definition of hurt and somebody else's might be different.
No, that's it, because the way the petition is written, it forbids by the law that IP13 would create. It would make a crime if you were to touch the sexual organs of that animal. So that's why practices like artificial insemination, or what you just described, milking the cow, you're making that human contact with those organs of that cow, and yeah, you would become a criminal, Rick.
That is such bullshit. I mean, come on. I'm milking a cow and that's a sexual thing? Or you're artificially inseminating an animal and that is a sexual thing? That is absolutely ridiculous. So what about dog and cat breeders or people breeding animals for, is that all of a sudden cruelty because the animal didn't get to choose its mate?
Yeah. Yes, it is. That would fall under the cruelty as well. So if you're breeding domestic pets, that's forbidden.
Tom, this is like, I think people are sitting here, they're all commenting, but I think people are probably sitting around going, good God, what is next? What happens next? Oh man. Yeah. Is there anything I'm not asking you? I got just a minute or two left. Is there anything you want to make a point to people about before we go?
Well, don't sign the petition that is being carried now for the next year to collect 112,000 signatures. So I would advise don't sign it. And if this IP13 comes on the ballot in the November 2022 general election, don't vote for it. Vote against it. The other thing that you should know is that there is currently a petition that has gone before the Oregon Attorney General Ellen Rosenbaum. that is protesting the IP13 ballot title, because the ballot title, which needs to be 15 words or less, is not fairly descriptive and is very misleading.
Right.
And so all of these, different agricultural animal groups that I named a few minutes ago, they have gone together in petitioning the state attorney general to invalidate the ballot title language that is proposed by the proponents of IP13. And the same thing is happening in the state of Colorado. The ballot title for the Colorado petition has also been challenged as well.
So here's
that's where we are right now. Get educated, talk to people. It's one of those nutso things that is out there, but it could happen and it could pass. It could definitely pass in the state of Oregon, I'm afraid to say.
Tom, here's another thought. What are they going to do when humane societies and some people have to look at, isn't spade and neutering? Wouldn't that be considered cruelty to animals because you're touching their sex organs, you're cutting off their sex organs? So how are you going to spade and neuter all these animals that, and I totally believe in spade and neutering, but how are you going to, and then I wonder how humane societies are going to deal with that, because we want to support humane treatment of animals, but all of a sudden the very thing we push for the most is to castrate and spade and neuter animals. And then we've got a problem on our hands. So, because that would be outlawed too, wouldn't it? I mean, that's a sex organ.
The spaying and neutering of pets or the castration of livestock, those are all criminal activities under IP13. So the extent of impact and effect of IP13, should it pass, just goes on and on beyond any reasonable sense of understanding, and it would have a major impact to how we live in Oregon. So,
Tom, let me ask you one last question. What do you love about living in Harney County?
Well, believe it or not, I love the crisp, sunny mornings. We have over 300 days of sun every year. Beautiful sunsets, beautiful sunrises, the long shadows about this time in the afternoon. And I love the Steens Mountains that I can see as I look across my ranch. And I love the openness of a county that is, Harney County is as large as 9 states here in this United States. And we have about 7,000 people, about 25,000 head of cattle. So I'm not 25,000, 100,000, maybe about 25 times the number of cows than we do people here. So if you like wide open spaces, come to Harney County and visit.
And you have, and I know you would say this, but you have the nicest people on the planet. I mean, you go to Harney County and you're not a stranger by the time you leave. I mean, people are, and they're honest and upfront, and they tell it like it is. And that is what Oregon used to be like.
We're good neighbors. We like to help people. If you come to Harney County and you get a flat tire, there's a good chance that someone in a cowboy hat will come up and change it for you.
Tom Sharps of the Oregon Cattlemen's Association, thank you so much for taking your time and being my co-producer and working hard over there, getting yourself on there. My arm's about to break off, so I'm going to call it a day. Hey, thank you, and please let me know anything, and have your association get a hold of me if the ballot title comes up or anything we can do to help you out. Okay.
Will do. Thank you very much, Rick.
All right, thanks, buddy.
To all the viewers.
All right,
Thank
see you later. See you later. All right, that's Tom Sharps with the Oregon Cattlemen's Association. So some of you are asking, what can we do? What you can do is don't sign the petition. The other thing you can do is go on the website that we put up here earlier and find out more about what this is and tell your friends about it, so that when they go up and see this thing that says cruelty to animals, that you are reading it and you know what it is. at the petition number 13, and you know exactly what it is. Talk to your friends about it. Talk to people. Share this on your page so other people can see it. Because you guys, this is what happens in Oregon so much. When I was a news guy, this is what drove me nuts, is we fall for people telling us that things are going to sound so good, that it sounds like, well, it sounds like such a good thing, but we don't do our homework. And yes, Rachel, we will do more videos on this, but we don't do our homework, and that's our fault. And I hope through this whole COVID thing and the last year that we've learned that we have to be involved in this process. If we're going to be Oregonians, we have to get involved. We have to be courageous. We can't worry about what people are going to say about us. We have to do our research and then do the right thing. And that doesn't mean go back and go, well, I don't have time. I got to take care of my family. This is our state and we have to take care of it. And we have to watch for things like this. Were they high? I don't know. So we want to thank, you guys, we cannot do our shows without our clients and our sponsors. And Amanda Parker with Parker Heights Realty is a wonderful woman. If you're looking for someone to sell your home, she could do it anywhere, but she's so focused at a Junction City where there's a lot of cattle, a lot of farming, a lot of sheep, a lot of 4-H kids, and she cares about this stuff. And that's why she sponsors shows like this, to get the word out to her neighbors and friends. So what you can do for me is go to my sponsors. You know, when you need somebody to be a realtor, remember, you like the content, you like the fact we're doing this. Well, I need them and they need you. And that's how community works. So, you know, and there's some people out there right now that are not very happy with me. And that's just fine, because I think what we're finding out in Oregon is there's a group of people, a very small group of people who don't like when you butt the system, when you come up against the narrative of the day. And we have to come up with the narrative of the day, come against that narrative of the day. And we have to stand up for what we believe in. Do we still need to listen to other people? You bet we do. Do we still need to be educating ourselves? Yes, we do. But we don't need to cower, and we need to be courageous. You can be either a coward or you can be courageous, and we're looking for courageous people right now. Now, speaking of courageous, tomorrow we have a very courageous show, and it's probably going to get us in a little bit of hot water. But Springfield High School recently put out an assignment, and it has to do with race. And there's a video that they put out that we have a copy of. It's on the internet. It's a produced video, but it was part of a class assignment. And some parents in Springfield are very upset. And we're going to, I have a gentleman, I've called 5 different friends of mine who are all Black, asked them to come on the show. 1 didn't get back to me. 3 did and said, Rick, we would love to, because we don't think this is right, but we can't do it because we don't want to take the heat in this community. And 1 guy said he would. His wife is white. He is Black. He has 2 kids that go to Springfield High School. And he's going to come in and go through this video with us and tell you what he thinks of each particular part. So get informed about what's going on in our schools and what's happening. We also did reach out to the principal. He's not going to be able to come on to the show, he said, but we do have a couple of comments from him as well. So we're trying to be out there doing our thing. So that's tomorrow night, 5 o'clock. Sponsored by Chris Dental Family Dentistry. All right, I'm Rick Dancer. I'm going to share this around. You guys share it too, because Facebook doesn't like some of our topics and likes to get antsy with us. But what we found is if you guys share it, we don't need them. All right, I will see you tomorrow night. Have a good night. And thanks for tuning in. And thanks for caring about this place we call Oregon.